In today's video, we are going to talk about a pretty common gait deviation after a neurologic injury, and that is external rotation, a leg that externally rotates and circumducts. So we're going to go into what these things look like, some of the root causes as to why this might be happening with your walking, and of course some exercises based on what might be causing you to walk this way, exercises that you can do to address those specific issues. If you're new to this channel, I'm Tara. I'm a neurologic physical therapist, and on this channel we talk about anything and everything related to mobility, health, fitness, and mindset in the context of neurologic injury, with the end goal of empowering you with as many tools as possible to take ownership of your rehab and your health, to live an overall more active, more mobile, pain-free, happier, healthier life. And all that said, let's first just talk about what these two kind of gait deviations look like. So they are very common that they go together. That's why we're going to cover them both in this video. But one very, very common problem that people describe to me is that they don't like that their leg kind of rotates out to the side or their knee goes out to the side when they try and bring an involved leg forward. And then the other one is that people don't like that their leg kind of feels like it's swinging around the side when they try and bring kind of like an involved leg or a weaker leg forward. Now, there are a ton of different reasons that I can think of as to why these things happen. That is why I go through the explanations as to what I think some of the causes can be, because it will really help you to get to the exact exercises that are going to be best for you and not waste your time doing maybe some exercises that aren't necessarily as beneficial. So I know some of you guys don't like these explanations, but I do think they're hugely important so that when you get to the exercises, you can just kind of cross off a bunch of exercises that might not even apply to you. Or more importantly, you can focus on the exercises that are going to have the greatest impact on your overall walking. All right, so we're going to go over circumduction first, because I think that's probably the most common, and then we'll get into the external rotation, and then we'll kind of put them together and kind of talk about some reasons why they happen together. But why do people swing their leg around the side? Well, during normal walking, our knee bends when we bring that leg through. The reason we bend our knee is so that our foot can clear the ground. So a lot of times, if someone feels like their foot is not going to clear the ground, they're just going to swing it around the side. So the most obvious reason why someone would want to swing their leg around the side, or why they feel like they can't bring it through, is because you can't bend your knee. So a lot of you have this issue. A lot of you talk about this in the comments, that you feel like you have a stiff leg. Well, if that leg feels stiff, or you don't, or you know you can't bend that knee, a lot of times you're just going to kind of swing that leg around the side. The other reason why you might swing the leg around the side is the perception that this leg is too long and it's not going to clear the ground. So what are some reasons why a leg might appear like it's too long? One reason is your foot is pointed. So if your foot is pointed at all, that means that that leg goes from being here to when your foot's pointed, it's here. Your brain kind of knows that. So if the leg is too long and it can't clear the ground, again, that's why you're going to maybe potentially swing that leg around the side. So if you have ankle spasticity, the reason this is important, if you have a foot that involuntarily points down and you have an AFO and you don't like to wear your AFO, this might be one reason why you might want to wear that AFO, is you want that leg to kind of shorten so that it can clear the ground and make your walking more efficient. Now, the other reason I bring up this longer leg with a pointed foot is some of you have what we call a plantar flexion contracture, meaning that your foot does not get to neutral. So a lot of times what bracing professionals do is they will have to set that brace in some plantar flexion because your foot cannot get to the dorsiflexion that it needs to get to. Then what they do is hopefully they put a little wedge under the heel because that brace is pointed. That would be best case scenario. Some braces I've seen don't have that, but hopefully they do that. And then if they do that, that foot is still pointed. One step further that they need to go, that I sometimes see that either bracing companies didn't do it, or by the time I saw someone, they had changed to different shoes and they failed to realize that they needed to do this. But you need to build up the other shoe, right? So if this foot's pointed, you have to make this leg a little bit longer in order for that foot to clear the ground. That's really, really important. If they don't do that, then just subconsciously you're going to start swinging that leg around the side because you know that leg is a little bit longer. And then some less common reasons, but they're important to go over, is if you don't have strength in your hip flexors. So you can't bring your leg up this way. The way you can test that is lay down on your back and see if you can get your leg up from a flat position. Bring your knee towards your chest from laying completely flat. If you can't do it, that means there's some kind of a dysfunction. It doesn't necessarily mean it's weakness. It could just mean that you have some kind of a movement, abnormal movement pattern going on that's preventing you from being able to flex that hip up. If that's the case, then a lot of times we just kind of keep that leg straight and kind of swing it around to the side and just compensate with some other muscles to bring that leg through. Now, the reason I tell you that is we're going to go over some exercises today specifically to work on hip flexion. Those would be the exercises that you might want to add to your home exercise program if you are trying to improve your gait quality and lessen some of these gait deviations that we're talking about today. And then one last kind of cousin reason that we're going to go over, it's not directly related to this, but it is something I see quite frequently, is that someone is either trying to walk too fast or they're focused really, really, really hard, almost too hard on lifting that leg up, because maybe you have been in a situation where your toe has caught the ground because you didn't clear the ground for whatever reason. Could be any number of things that we just went through, and your body, your brain quickly adapted to that. And now you feel like you need to work really, really hard in order to not have that happen again. It just kind of becomes like an ingrained pattern of just like really overly lifting that leg up. So why do I tell you that? Is that some of you are trying to almost too hard to lift that leg up. And what's happening is instead your leg is stiffening. This usually happens with those of you that have like spasticity in the leg. We've talked about that in a lot of videos. Spasticity is an involuntary contraction in the muscles that does happen after a stroke, where the muscles just automatically contract without you really telling them to contract. And one of those muscles is the quadriceps that does that. So the muscle that straightens the knee out. So in your best intentions of trying to bring that leg through, that extra effort you're actually putting into that is actually causing this moment where your leg is going into extension. Even if it's brief, your brain will feel that ground kind of stop the foot when it knows that the leg should be swinging through. And within an instant, your body's response is just to swing that leg around the side. It happens so fast that people just don't realize that it catches, and then you just automatically will swing it around the side. It's kind of like a safety reaction or mechanism from that one little brief sensation where you feel like that foot gets stuck on the ground. So why do I tell you that? A lot of people, if they just slow down or take smaller steps, that's the best fix for that. And just ingraining that new pattern of walking a little bit slower and relaxing. So swing phase is almost a passive movement. I know that that's hard for a lot of you when you know that your foot catches on the ground to think that way, like relax and don't work so hard. But it really is the best way to decrease spasticity interfering with your ability to bend that knee and swing that leg through. So again, that swing phase right at this moment when you want to bring it through, whereas where a lot of you kind of think lift, 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 it's in that one split second moment where you have to think relax, relax. Let the knee bend. Okay, so you kind of have to bring those cues down to more like passive cues. Relax. Okay, relax. All right. And then one final thing I want to go over is dissociation. So dissociation is the ability to separate the left side of the body from the right side of the body. Many times after a stroke, this becomes impaired, meaning whatever the left leg does, the right leg wants to do the exact same thing. And this is another occurrence or another potential root cause that can make you want to swing your leg around the side. Why? Your strong leg needs to stay straight, or your uninvolved leg to support your body weight. And when it goes straight, the other leg goes straight. Your brain knows that if it tries to bend this leg, your other leg's gonna bend, which some of you actually do. You get here and you have this little moment where both your legs bend and then you kind of bring it through. I think that's what I see clinically. I think it's a dissociation issue. I can't say that for sure. That's just my hypothesis, but there's this moment where people will bend both their knees, and that's what I think is going on. Is you're trying to bend this knee to bring it through. You can't dissociate, so both your knees are bending at the same time. Why is that important? Is we're going to go through some exercises to dissociate, meaning that your right leg and your left leg need to be able to do opposite movements at the same time. All right, now let's talk about that external rotation, because they usually do go together. One, and the most common reason I think, is just that your external rotators are tight. Most people, when I stretch them towards internal rotation, most people that have had a stroke, it's very uncomfortable. So I don't know if that's just from laying in bed, the position that you're in bed when you're in the hospital, that causes that, but it's rare for me to find someone that their external rotators are not tight. So there's a good chance that your leg is just externally rotated most of the day. And so then when you get up to walk, it just stays externally rotated. The other reason I think that people externally rotate is that it is part of an abnormal synergy pattern. Abnormal synergy patterns are patterns that occur after a stroke or brain damage, brain injury, where muscles link up abnormally together. In the leg, there is a flexor synergy pattern and there's an extensor synergy pattern. A flexor synergy pattern is hip flexion with external rotation and dorsiflexion. So if any one of those movements occur, all of those movements occur together. Your brain knows it needs to bring that leg through. And so when it wants to flex the hip and flex the knee, external rotation, it is an abnormal synergy pattern. They're kind of like primitive patterns that are kind of built in, hardwired into our brain from birth. As our brain matures or develops, we kind of integrate these patterns. They kind of reemerge after a stroke or a brain injury. It's one theory is that it is one of the phases in recovery, that you move in patterns first and then you move out of patterns. I think that's probably like there's an adaptive rationale that you're flaccid, you don't have any movement, and so we use these kind of primitive or patterns to initiate movement early on. The goal is that you move through these patterns to the point where you can move like what we call out of synergy patterns. A lot of people get stuck in these synergy patterns. So that's one potential reason. So why do I tell you that? Is you want to try and isolate joint movement. So we'll go through some exercises today, but for you, you want to be able to flex your hip without it externally rotating. That would be the key one, especially when it comes to walking. So almost flexing the hip and internally rotating would be kind of what we would call like an out of synergy exercise. So how do you know if you use a lot of patterns? Lay on your back and bend your knees up and try and bring your knee towards your chest. And if you can't bring the knee like kind of towards the opposite shoulder when you bring it up, then you're probably using a little bit of a pattern to bring that leg up. And then the other reason is that you're compensating with some of your adductors. So if you turn your leg out to the side, you can kind of compensate by using some of the muscles on the inside of the leg. And again, that's probably a sign that you just don't have adequate strength or control of the muscles, the hip flexors. So you would want to focus on hip flexion. Okay, so quick review: circumduction, potentially a longer leg. What can cause a longer leg? Not bending your knee to bring your knee through, to bring your leg through. Spasticity or a stiff leg. A quick fix or an easy fix is your foot's pointed, so that's what's making it too long and making you swing it around the side. Or the inability to dissociate. It can be more than one of those factors. It could be none of those factors. So don't necessarily think just because I talk about these things that you have to have something on this list. There could be other things out there. These are probably just the things that are top of mind right now because they might potentially be some of the things I'm working with certain patients that I'm seeing in person right now. But again, it's probably not an exhaustive list, but just keep in mind if it's any of those things, then the exercise we go through, I'm going to point that out when we get to the exercises so you know which exercises to focus on. And then just for summary, rotating out to the side, it's either potentially an abnormal synergy pattern. So in that case, you would want to work out of synergy movements or isolated joint movements without all the joints linking up together. Tightness in the external rotators, or the inability to control the hip flexors or bring the leg through. Okay, so I'm going to try and go through a couple of exercises to address each one of those issues, but it's not going to be an exhaustive list of exercises. So for those of you who aren't aware, we do have a membership program where you do get access to an entire vault of over 450 exercises specifically designed for neurologic conditions. In the exercise vault, you can filter through the exercises by category. One category that's in there is out of synergy leg movements. So you can see that if you're really comfortable with a lot of the material I'm sharing here on YouTube, that you could easily go to that vault and kind of pick the exercises that apply to your specific movement problems that you're dealing with right now. The other thing, as a member, you do get access to our monthly lives, and something new we started this year, our monthly webinars. We also have a bronze membership program. With your bronze membership program or your gold membership program, but specifically for your bronze membership program, you do get access to PDF handouts that go along with these videos here on YouTube. This video does have a PDF handout that's going to have pictures and descriptions of all the exercises we go through today. So with a $5 membership, you do get access to those PDF handouts so that you can just take that PDF handout to the exercise area in your home and easily implement them without having to come back and watch this video. To learn more about both of our membership programs and to sign up, you can visit rehab-hq.com. But now let's go ahead and dive into the exercises. All right, so we're starting out with just a stretch. This is kind of for any of you who feel like your hip external rotators are tight. Now, remember what I said. This is pretty common for most people that I see that have had a stroke. So I always like to start out with stretches. I think it's a good way to kind of set up your daily routine, just to make sure that you have the mobility before you actually try and actually start to do an active movement, so that you're not having resistance from muscles that might be tight. So hopefully that makes sense. So I think everyone should start with this. I don't think there's a downside for any of you, whether you just circumduct or you circumduct, meaning swing your leg out to the side and externally rotate. So this is probably my favorite stretch. Sitting and just bringing your knees together, having your foot up on something a little bit higher. This is the leg we're stretching and just bringing that across. And then, of course, the other stretch I showed, laying on your back. This is the leg we're stretching. Bring the other leg across the top, and you're just pulling that knee. Try and keep this shoulder down, and you're just pulling that knee across, stretching this hip towards internal rotation. All right, so this seems like a pretty basic exercise. We're just doing knee to chest or knee to opposite shoulder. This is for any of you where maybe you circumduct or swing your leg out to the side or externally rotate because you don't have good control of your hip flexors. Remember, both of those things can happen if you don't have the ability to control your hip flexors to bring the leg straight forward. Now, I am internally rotating the leg a little bit first and then pulling it up, because then that's addressing another issue. If you're using a flexor synergy to bring that leg through, remember I said with hip flexion, it's external rotation. So we want to do internal rotation with hip flexion just to make sure you're not using an abnormal synergy pattern to bring that leg forward, which can manifest as the leg rotating out to the side when you bring that leg through. And then the other thing we're addressing with this position is dissociation. So the thing you want to focus on, if you know you can't dissociate, meaning get one leg to stay straight while the other one leg bends up, pay special attention that you don't bend the leg you're not working, which I have seen where when you try and flex one, bring one knee up, the other one kind of bends up also. You would want to focus on keeping that other leg straight out if you think that that is what is interfering with your walking. So again, this is the leg that we're working. We're going to slightly internally rotate first and then bring it up. Okay, set yourself up for success. Don't start with your leg all the way down here because it's going to be harder. And don't start with your leg externally rotated, even if that means you need to reach over and pull that leg across and then let go and try and bring it up. Remember, a lot of you are going to rotate that leg out to the side. So bring it across first, bring it up. If you know you're also working on dissociation, really make sure that you're not bending the other knee when you do that movement. All right, for this exercise, this is for those of you that circumduct because you can't bend your knee. Sometimes the reason that happens is because you just went through standing on that leg. So if you visualize the gait cycle or the walking cycle, you stand on your involved leg and then you need to bend your knee to swing it through. Some of you can't transition between those two because you have spasticity in the muscles that keep that leg straight. So when you stand on it, you're using kind of an extensor synergy pattern to support your body weight, but then you have to immediately relax that leg to bend it to swing it through. So I love this exercise, just laying on your back. You're nice and relaxed, so you're setting yourself up for success as far as getting that leg to relax, and then just trying to bend that knee. So what I like to do is kick it out straight, because that's what's going to happen when you're walking, is your leg is going to be locked out straight because you just stood on that leg, and then see if you can bend it from a locked out position. So again, this is for those of you that might circumduct because your leg is stiff and you cannot relax that leg after having it in that straight position. So you're going to straighten it first and then just let it bend and fall. Kick it out straight and then just let it bend, let it fall. Kick it out straight and let it bend, let it fall. All right, and then for this exercise, what we're just working on is a forward-backward rock. This is the leg, the involved leg. We're just practicing that transition from standing on the leg to bending it and changing your cues a little bit. That's the main reason for this part, this repetitive, and I do recommend doing multiple repetitions. We have to change that thought process or that cue that you're giving yourself right at that moment after you stand on that leg. So you're going to stand on it, support your body weight, relax. Stand on it, support your body weight, relax. Getting that transition from loading to relaxing. Load to relax. Load to relax. Load to relax. All right, so now what we're working on is kind of like using gravity to assist a little bit. Again, trying to get your brain out of that mentality that you have to lift, 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 lift. You're going to step off with your uninvolved leg first, and then your goal is just to kind of let that leg kind of fall off the front of that step. Really focus on falling. By going downhill, for some of you, it's not going to work for everyone, especially if you have a lot of spasticity, but for some of you, you just need that little cue that you can relax the leg. And so now, because you're going downhill or the leg's falling down, it might be a little bit easier to start relearning that relax phase of the walking cycle when you're going downhill. So step down and relax, let it fall down. Step down and let it relax, let it fall down. All right, and then my favorite exercise, which a lot of you who've been around for a while, you already know that. I love something with wheels on it. Again, it's going to kind of retrain your brain to relax through that swing phase versus work, 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 work. So you're going to start, and my suggestion is to push your leg back first. It does a couple of things. Sometimes that spasticity is a little bit worse because we're not comfortable having our leg behind us. So by pushing that leg back a little bit, you're actually working that component of having that leg behind you. If you can, if it's just not going to bend when you do that, then yeah, you can bring it forward a little bit or even back up, kind of work your leg onto it and then bend it that way. Some of you will be able to do that. And then from there, it's just relax. Just let it slide forward. Gentle. Your cue is relax and relax. 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 So again, we're just kind of trying to learn a new cue of relax that leg. And then if none of those work for those of you that are really rotating that knee out to the side, my last suggestion for this video, I've made a few videos on this, so definitely check out some of the other videos I made on this. But for this video, my last suggestion would be to just strap your knees together and just try and relearn a little tiny baby step. Obviously, when your knees are strapped together, you can't take a huge step, but just start there, taking a little bit of a baby step. I like having a yoga block in between the feet because it keeps you honest. If you're kicking it, then you're probably bringing your feet together. And if you can see, if your feet are together, your knees are kind of technically can still rotate out. So that's why the yoga block comes in handy to kind of keep your feet a little bit wider than your knees, and then just a little baby step forward. And then one last suggestion that I have that will work for some of you is you can buy this this shoe lift on Amazon. You can't walk around town in it, but it is a good tool if you were just going to try and practice walking in your house that will lift your other leg up, your uninvolved leg up. So if we raise the uninvolved leg up a little bit, then sometimes that's enough to get your brain to kind of relax a little bit and learn how to swing without feeling like you have to work so hard because you're raised up on the other side just slightly. Again, it's not something made to like walk around town in because it just straps onto any shoe, but putting that on your other foot might just give you enough clearance that you can get this foot through. But that is it for this video. I hope you guys found this video helpful. Don't forget there is a handout with all the exercises that we went through today with pictures and descriptions. To get access to that handout, you do need to be a member. To learn more about our membership programs or to sign up, you can head to rehab-hq.com. If you're new to this channel and you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so that you'll get notified every time I upload new videos. If you like this video, hit that like button because it really does help these videos to get shown to more people, so I would really appreciate that. If you want to get exercises throughout the week, you can head on over to Instagram where I post 1 to 2 exercise videos every single week. I enjoyed spending time with y'all today, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.